Yay, we're live! Hi, Gina!
Hi, I'm very excited.
Yay. I'm assuming there was a little delay there where I was like, yay, we're live! How are you?
Pretty good. You know, it's allergy season, so I keep trying to tell people it's not coronavirus every time I sneeze.
Yes, I understand that all too well, my friend.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited you're here today. Yay! Because for those of you who are watching at home or at your office when you're supposed to be working or whatever, or huddled up in a hole because you're terrified about coronavirus, taking on my antibacterial wipes, even though I have all these illnesses I need to deal with now. Sorry, distraction. So I am so pleased to have Gina as my guest today because eons ago in another life, Gina and I worked together across the country at Planned Parenthood. So yay for the power of LinkedIn and reconnecting. Yay!
I love the Planned Parenthood family because you connect with people who you worked with like just a tiny bit here or there, but it's like, you know that person's background, like you know them in a sense because of that connection. It's a family.
It is. It's so great.
Alumni family.
It reminds me of my favorite button from Planned Parenthood. Don't fuck with us. Don't fuck without us.
Hell yes.
Which is my favoriteest button we ever made.
It really is the best one.
It's the best one. Really.
Yeah.
So welcome, Gina. Yay.
Thank you.
If you would take a moment to tell my audience a little bit about yourself and what you do now that you're not at Planned Parenthood.
So I am Gina DeAndrea Weatherup, and I founded a business called Chantilly Mediation and Facilitation because I think we just spend too much time working to not be happy at work.
Yay!
It's that simple. And
happy at work? What?
I know, it's insane, but I really believe in it. And most of what makes us not happy at work is actually other people. So I am a trained mediator and actually certified in the state of Virginia for small claims court cases. And what that means is that I actually understand what the process is and what the techniques are to help other people resolve conflict. And then what I do with the business is I offer that service, and I also offer training in those skills. So empathy, emotional intelligence, active listening, putting on your curious hat to communicate with curiosity and think about someone else's perspective. My business is very new. It's less than 2 years old, and I love my business.
This is incredible for a million reasons. The first one is empathy. And I'm saying this as the entire nation is going into hoarder land.
Yes.
Of their paranoia and their lack of empathy for other people. And that, like, we are going to see that in spades over the coming months, I'm assuming. So I love that. I also love the courage hat. That is
curiosity.
Curiosity
hat.
Sorry, maybe we need a courage hat too.
Yes, actually.
The idea of being curious about other people, about their lives, about their experiences. I mean, I think that's why I do the work that I do, especially in my speaking, is this idea that we should be asking people questions about who they are and how they got to be here.
And when you ask questions, no matter how good your question is, it needs to be asked from a place of authentic wanting to know. Really listening, not asking because you're setting them up to get a response, so then you can do this other thing over here. Like to really be like, what is it like for you?
Yeah, that's why I love it when people are like, when they ask the question, how are you? They're expecting the response to be, I'm great. And so that's why I always answer authentically with the actual truth of exactly how I am at that moment, which sometimes is, I'm super shitty. How are you? And they're like, what?
See, I love that. And also I struggle with it myself because I grew up in New York City, and how you doing is just the way you say hello, right? Like nobody answers that. You just say, how you doing? That's a greeting. But I was doing an emotional intelligence 101 thing at my co-working space, which is where I am right now, which is a woman-focused space, which I adore. It's a co-growth community. And I should give them like a real shout out. It's called Rowan Tree in Herndon, Virginia, and they're amazing.
We could link them in the comments.
Yes, we will definitely do that. And we spent a few minutes just talking about like when someone says, how are you? How do you respond? Because one piece of emotional intelligence is being in touch with your own emotions.
Yes.
Right. It's sort of the foundational self-awareness piece. So like even if you choose to just say fine or treat it like a hello and not say anything,
Sure.
can you really identify an emotion right now? Like, that's that question of like, how in touch are you with yourself?
I love it. I love it. So, what drives you to continue your work in the face of obstacles?
So this question was really interesting to me because I feel like I could answer it in 8 different ways. I mean, the basic thing that drives me is part of what I've already said. We should all be happy at work. We should all be able to do work that we find fulfillment in and purpose. And that is what drives me, period. But if there's an obstacle, and I thinking about that Planned Parenthood background, the obstacles I face today are so different from the obstacles that, you know, people currently working there are dealing with, or people who really live that activist life right now are dealing with. So, but when I think about different obstacles I've faced, there's absolutely sometimes what drives me is sort of a, oh, you think I can't do this? No, let me show you I can attitude. And
helpful for running a business, by the way.
What'd you say?
That's helpful for running a business.
Yes, it is. But sometimes it's also, oh, they think I can't, can I? So I want to prove it to myself.
Yes.
And then also just the idea that, you know, I really come to this from the background of we treat each other badly because we're stressed out and being treated badly. Like there's this circular thing that happens. Yes. And if I can help people in a workplace to have that place be more kind, or just be kinder, be a place of kindness, then you're not taking that stress home and taking things out on other people along the way or during your commute or whatever. And I think that there could be ripple effects, right? So what drives me is wanting to be of service to other people in that specific way.
I really love that, because that helps you get past those moments where you're butting up against a bunch of obstacles.
Yeah.
And because especially running a business, like when you have to promote yourself and you've got to like strategize how you're going to get the next client or do the next thing, it can be a struggle for sure.
Definitely.
For sure. So that said, how do you fight imposter syndrome and feeling inadequate about your skills, education, and ideas?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it is that focus on being in service to others and recognizing that we all have different backgrounds and different perspectives. Even when you look like someone, like we're both white women, you know, in a certain age range and have had some similar life experiences, but you know, we've had some that are different. So knowing that I have knowledge that I can just share with people kind of helps me, and checking in and getting that reinforced from others is really important for me when those imposter syndrome moments pop up. Like talking with a good friend of mine who I've known for 20 years and being like, I don't know, like this is my first time I'm doing this type of a training with the client and I'm really nervous. And she's like, wait, the topic is empathy? Well, you've talked to me about that and I didn't know anything you were sharing. So like that was really useful. You come across really knowledgeable and things like that. I also am just someone who feels that it's really important to sort of be prepared and do your homework. You know, I understand I'm not always the smartest person in the room. So to be a mediator in the state of Virginia and a lot of states, but not all of them, you don't have to have any training. You don't have to have a certification or a license. But I went and I took a training class because I wanted to understand, if I'm going to call myself this, what does it really mean? What do other people do in this space? So I want to stay knowledgeable, and then I focus on how can I use that in service, and I ask for feedback. One of the things
feedback is so hard for people.
And I actually don't do it as often as I would like to, or at least I don't do it sort of as formally as I would like to. Like I'm toying with the idea of actually giving my clients sort of like a checklist and being like, could you help me out and help me understand like what was really valuable for your people here on this. But I wanted to share this. Here at Rowan Tree, they actually do a member to member thing where I can book a space and for other people who are members here, do my own workshop sort of for free and get their feedback, right? So I didn't do a new thing I'm testing out. I did something that I've done with corporate clients and that I'm wondering if should I explore doing this just for anyone individual. And one of the questions on the evaluation form was, did you think I was an expert in this topic? And I really thought about, should I not include that question? But then I was like, I kind of want to know the answer, so I'm going to put it in there. And they did. So, hey.
It's so interesting though, because I go through this all the time. Like when I am getting ready to do a presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's on the same topic. So I talk about the graceful revolution a lot.
Yeah.
And so I always assume that I need to change it in some way. But
Yeah.
I always hear it, no, you don't. Like, just do your thing. And so I'm constantly thinking, are people going to think I'm being repetitive? Are people going to think that I've already said this? Are people going to be bored? Are people not going to like me? Like, I go through that whole thing too. And then I always hear, wow, that was great. I've seen you present before, but I learned so many new things. And I'm like, okay.
You're like, how? But all right.
The thing I have to remember is people are only halfway paying attention.
Yeah.
Right? So people will go to a workshop or they'll go to a class or they'll go to a talk and they're only halfway present.
Right.
And so you can say the same things 3 or 4 different times.
Yes.
And it'll be new to everybody, even if they've seen you 3 or 4 different times, because they're like, oh, I never heard that before. You
right.
Words. And people are like, wow, that's new information. So this imposter syndrome, because I get asked this a lot, and these questions actually came from my followers, which I think is really great. So you know, it sounds like you're like, I'm just going to be in service, because as long as I'm in service and I'm doing the work I'm put here to do, then it doesn't matter what the imposter syndrome is telling me. Which I think
right. Because one of the tactics is to ignore it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have those doubts. I'm just not going to give them any air. Let me not concentrate over there.
Yeah. Let me just not give you any energy at all. Imposter syndrome.
And I will also say, it really helped after my very first client. It was the night before my very first training client. And I was obsessively rereading the things that I was going to go over with them, and then how the slides looked and everything. My husband was like, take a break. Like, just there is such a thing as over preparing. And I stopped and I thought about what he was saying. And I was like, take a break. That's one of the keys to happiness at work. You have to take breaks in order to be productive. I forgot my own thing. Yes. Okay. I'm going to do that.
How often do you teach what you need to most learn?
How often do I teach what I need to most learn? Every time I speak.
Yep. Isn't that funny?
Every time. Well, because these are the interpersonal things I teach in, right? I'm not showing someone what to do in Excel or how to code something. Like, I need to learn. We are all constantly learning these things.
Yeah, so fascinating. It's so fascinating to me. Do you have one or more definable moments in your journey, or have you always been this way?
I love this question, and I wanted to ask, although I don't know, because this came from your audience, I don't know what your response will be. Like, is there anything specific behind this question that you are curious about? Because
I think that what the person who on the thread asked this question is that they're really struggling with, so I've had these things happen that have been really big things that have made me into who I am today. But some of them are not necessarily good things.
Oh yeah, totally.
Can be self-sabotaging, or they create blocks so we don't move forward. So I think that was what she was asking.
Okay.
So I'm curious about what
the reason that I asked you the question is my brain went to that feminist theory of every feminist has an aha moment, and I didn't. I just grew up feeling this way. It probably helps having had 2 older brothers, being in an Italian-American Catholic family. And I literally still have a little pendant that says Italian #1, Italian princess. Like, I grew up with a certain expectation about how to behave that I defied, not all the time, but pretty regularly. But from a business perspective, like, I was just saying to my husband, like, or to someone, did I say it to you? I could not have done the work that I do now 10 years ago. I could not have done this work when I was a college student, when I was in high school. Like, there were pieces of it, absolutely. Like the mediation stuff. The first time I got trained in mediation was like 20 years ago. And I remember feeling like it was a natural fit, because guess what? I have degrees in women's studies. Guess how we interact in women's studies classes in a college and university setting? We listen to each other and then we respond. So,
well, sometimes.
We're
supposed to listen to each other.
When it feels like the class is going well, that's often what happens. At least that was my experience, right? So
I understand.
there's been this long sort of slow building. And for me, actually being a parent is a big piece of that, because I learned a lot about the importance of taking perspective, taking someone else's perspective, stepping back and taking perspective of what's the bigger picture here in being a parent. I don't think it's something all parents experience. I don't think it's something you have to be a parent to experience, but that's been my experience. The other two things about starting my business that were sort of identifiable moments were, I wound up doing a bunch of freelance communications work for a while right before I founded my business, and I never made that an actual business because I didn't care that much, right? So finding a new passion for myself that builds on my existing belief and need to be of service was a definable moment. The other thing was looking around at some of the other business owners that I knew who were small business owners who happened to be men, who I looked at them and I was like, not to be offensive, but if you can do this, I can do this.
Yes.
I'm at least as smart as you. At least as smart as you. Like, I think I can figure this out.
Yeah. It's interesting going from the world of activism too. I think this idea of having this activist platform as sort of the social justice platform and activist platform as a training ground to running your own business, I think it makes us uniquely suited to finding our voice and advocating for ourselves. And I think that this idea of sort of harnessing that rebellious spirit that you have is something that I talk with my clients. I mean, I am the natural born rebel, right? So it's something I talk to my clients about all the time, is this idea of how can you harness that natural, innate sense of pushing boundaries to become successful in your life and in your business. And I think that even if you're doing it at work, how can you find your voice and really take these definable moments to push the boundaries and the envelope?
Absolutely. And some of us have to push the boundaries and push the envelopes just to be authentically ourselves. And you can't find happiness and fulfillment at work if you're not being yourself there.
No, it's totally true. So what are the habits and techniques that you use to counter negative self-talk?
So a couple of these are sort of things I've already talked about, right? Like, it's the feedback piece. I will openly ask, like, how am I doing? Like, even in the middle of a training, I'll be like, does this make sense to you? Like, do you feel like you're learning something? At the end of a training, I like to end with takeaways. What are your takeaways? What did we do today that you think you can actually use?
I love that.
Right?
Yes.
The other thing I mentioned is perspective taking, stopping and reminding myself, like, I'm not the center of the universe. Other people have other experiences and other ideas. And that's part of why I ask for the feedback. And it's also like, I get to be an expert because other people don't have my experiences, right? And I get to trust other people when they tell me something because they are their own experts, right? I don't have their lives. And then the last thing is sort of a bit of a mindfulness thing. I do yoga. I just, in the past 7 or 8 months, started to get into trying to do yoga at least several times a week, if not every day, because I don't meditate. I find it very difficult to meditate. And a lot of people in my space do lead meditations. And I'm like, nope, I can tell you all the research says about meditation at work. It's wonderful. You should do it. I don't do it. It's hard. But I can lose myself and shut down those thoughts when I'm moving. And so yoga, dance also, but I don't dance as much as I really want to and should. So, so yoga and movement.
That's incredible. Those are some really good, tangible takeaways. Like, I really like those. And I'm really glad you don't like meditating, because I know I should. And I went into it really well for a while practicing that, but I was like, I have to find other ways to lose my brain.
Yes. Yeah.
And
so for some people, it is absolutely, you need to be moving. I met someone who was a former, I think I'm going to mess up the acronym, ultimate fighting, I think. There's an acronym for it. I forgot. But like, he was saying that's his meditation. Like, he has to get into the gym and like beat on the boxing thing, right? That's what he has to do to get out of his brain. The other thing I will say, though, for anyone who might be watching and thinking about meditating, there are many different types of meditation. So if you've tried one and had a bad experience, maybe search out a different type, right? Like, find out what that was. Because I used to Here's another thing. I used to hate yoga because at the end of every yoga class, they would do a body scan meditation. There is something about a body scan meditation that just brings out all my anger. I know it's not supposed to work that way, but that's what happens in my brain. So it would like destroy the whole goodness of the yoga. But then I learned about things like loving kindness meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is amazing.
I'm just like,
so yeah.
It is my challenge for sure. I love those tangible techniques. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What is the most misunderstood myth of the word feminism?
This question. There are like 1,000 myths about feminism. I gave this some thought. I did some writing on this. And I think the thing that I think is most misunderstood from a lot of different perspectives is there's a stereotype that feminists don't have a sense of humor, right? That we are not a joyful bunch.
We're not funny.
We're not funny. And also we are not joyful, that we don't have happiness, that we are fundamentally angry. So for me, I see these things as like sort of twin stereotypes.
Yes.
Feminism gives me more joy than anything else in the world. Probably because it underlies everything that I do, everything that I am. And I am a very funny person. I laugh at myself all the time.
I love that. Yeah. The fact that people think that we are like these angry, bra burning, militant, lesbian feminists practicing witchcraft, whatever the whole entire stereotype is so.
I mean, I do want to burn things down, but not a good bra that I'm comfortable in, right? Like,
why would we
The
don't
other thing I was thinking about is like with feminist comedians or even just women comedians, right? Like they may be cracking jokes about things from their perspective that 50% of the audience may not understand. So therefore they don't think it's funny. They're wrong. But they can't switch perspective and get out of their own heads to realize.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to this idea of we're each so individual. So this is the thing that I've really been trying to teach people when I'm doing my workshops and speaking. Like, it's time for us to own that our individuality doesn't make us special.
Right.
You know, or like we're uniquely suited to everybody getting a trophy. But what it means is that we are each placed here with I call it the divine assignment. So we each have a purpose. What you do, Gina, I can't do. What I do, Gina, you're not here to do. Right? Like what each one of us is here. And parenting really has taught me this because I have 3 children who are biologically completely related, who are completely different in every single way possible. Right? So each one of them has to be disciplined differently. It's not just that 2 are girls and 1 is a boy. Like it's not even that. It's like they have to be, their sensitivities are different. What makes them laugh is different. And so I want us to be more compelled to think about and have empathy for the fact that we each have a different story to tell. And that's the point, is we each have to live that divine assignment.
Yes, absolutely. I was with a client yesterday and what they wanted me to talk about was how to find happiness and fulfillment at work. And I loved this, and it was a brand new thing I did. And the more research I did on this idea of purpose at work, it is unique. And at one point during the training, I just kind of stopped and ad-libbed for a moment. I was like, I don't mean unique like no one else in the world does precisely what you do, which I think might be kind of what you're saying. But what I meant was like, I as a trainer cannot say, this is your purpose, or here are the exact steps to find your purpose. It's actually about self-reflection. It's actually about taking the time, finding the space to think, what's important to me? What are my strengths in terms of workplace stuff? And what are my values? What do I need to be doing every single day of my life to feel that I have a meaning, that I have a purpose here?
Love it.
And if you find that purpose, it will be the same no matter what you do. It will be the same in your personal life. It will be the same when your title changes. It will be the same if you go to a different company. It will be the same no matter what.
Yes, I love that. I love it so much.
Okay, you ready for your 3?
Yes, I love that you're teaching people that. So are you ready for your 3 bonus questions?
Yes.
What is the most important thing people need to know about workplace happiness in 2020?
That is an excellent question.
Thank you.
I can talk about like the 4 keys to workplace happiness, and I can talk about how you do those things systematically in a company. But to pick one that's the most important, I think because of the moment that we're in right now with panic at different levels happening, I think it's a really unique moment to talk about taking breaks from work. Because if you work, you just get more and more stressed and you accomplish so much less. And you accomplish less at work and when you're not at work. So like if you're always thinking, because to me, taking a break also is about mindfulness, even not even specifically meditation, but like if I'm at home with my kids and we're cleaning up for the dinner table and my brain is on what I need to post to reach out to followers, to get clients, to get leads, or the training that I'm doing next week, I'm not in that moment. I'm not experiencing my kids. And you know what? I'm not giving the training or the marketing work the attention it really should have either, right? Because I'm like taking up dishes and doing something like that. We need to think about, okay, I've done my work for the day. I'm going to find a way, no matter how busy it is, because we all have like ebbs and flows and stuff. I'm going to take like an hour and not think about work at all, right? I'm going to shut that off. I'm not going to look at the email or the Slack or whatever it may be. That's like done, hopefully for the whole day, but like at least like just take some time to be in the next piece of my life.
Yeah.
And that leaders in a workplace need to give their employees that flexibility, right? Like you don't email the person who's on vacation, right? Yeah. Like just really simple, easy things. Like, and they are simple, but we don't do them.
And it's how it used to be. Like it used to be that, yeah. Except for very few people, before the advent of the interwebs, people would leave their work at work and go home and be with their family.
But if you can work remotely, then you can work constantly. And that is wrong. You should not be working constantly.
I love that. I love that. Take breaks, people. Take your breaks. I remember when I first started my business, I was like constantly like, I gotta work. And then I was like, no, I sure don't. I do this all the time.
Exactly.
And then having office hours and working during my office hours.
Yes.
It's just, it's delightful. And people are like, well, I need this at this time. And I will make some accommodations, especially for my client. Yeah. But I'm not going to be answering emails after, 7:00 at night usually.
Right.
It's like super important. Usually I'm hanging out with my husband. So love it. All right. Your second question. Do you have a gratitude practice? And if you do, what is it?
I do have a gratitude journal, and I do not write in it daily. There's actually research that backs me up, though. If the gratitude journal starts to feel like another thing you have to do, then it's not working, right? Yes. Gratitude practices have to fit what actually does feel fulfilling to you or meaningful to you. So when I started the gratitude journal like 3 or 4-ish years ago, I don't know exactly. And I did really try to do like at least 3 things every single time I wrote down and tried to write like in real detail, right? Which is what is the practice that is recommended. But I was doing it like 2-3 times a week. And I feel like it made a difference in me to take a moment and think about like, what am I really grateful for? What is really good in my life? It's helpful too for like recognizing privilege. Like one thing I haven't said yet that I think I usually try to be very upfront about it when I'm talking about the experience of running my own business. I would not be doing this if my husband did not have the job that he has, because I get health benefits from him. I get insurance from him. We can pay our mortgage from him, right? So like that is huge. And being able to recognize that in a way that I really feel it makes a difference for me. So I go back to that gratitude journal every once in a while. Sometimes I will consciously make myself pick it up when I'm really not feeling grateful and think about the things that make me feel grateful. And then sometimes,
so important.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's because I am having a moment of gratefulness and I want to remember that memory.
Yeah. awesome. I love it. Okay, your last question is, I talk a lot about trusting your instinct or listening to that niggle or that nudge, that instinctual thing that pushes us. So what is your niggle or your instinct telling you about what's next?
I don't know if it's something super specific. I have a lot going on right now and a lot of things I haven't talked about. And I think I'm mostly I've got some like business related goals for the year, but really I'm kind of in a one day at a time kind of a thing, right? So one of the things I started doing that I thought of when you mentioned office hours is I started giving myself a timesheet. And I'm actually like tracking like, oh, I spent 10 minutes doing this thing for that client that day. Or I spent 3 hours doing this thing for that client that day. And it helped me to feel progress. And now, because this happens a lot with people in any type of consulting type business, like there's an ebb and a flow. I'm in a month where there's less client work, there's more marketing work, and I'm not doing that. And I have to go back and do that because it helps me to feel that my days are organized and that I've accomplished something at the end of the day, even if there's not a paycheck coming in.
Yep. So important.
And my business is still new and I'm experimenting and trying new things. And so, yeah, try new things.
Speaking of your business, how can people find you?
Oh, my business name again is Chantilly Mediation and Facilitation because I didn't want to mess around with my name or something metaphorical. This is just what I do, where I do it. So I have a website and that's the website, Chantilly Mediation and Facilitation.com. I'll put it in the comments. And I am very active on LinkedIn. I exist on Twitter and Facebook, but I don't do as much there. So find me on LinkedIn if you use LinkedIn. And I'll put that into the comments as well. I would love to have followers on LinkedIn or connections. You can connect to me.
Great to connect you to a bunch of different people on LinkedIn.
Yay!
Thank you so much for being here. As usual, my friends, thank you so much for watching. If you are not doing so already, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at birdgirl1001. And you can find me on LinkedIn too, which is just weird. Tool of patriarchy, which I still think it is a tool of patriarchy.
I mean, it's owned by Microsoft.
Really kick-ass women over there. So I stand corrected. Leah May, that one's for you. And you can also, just so you know, I'm starting to enroll for my next class of Rebel School, which starts on May 7th. So if you're interested in Rebel School, go over to naturalbornrebel.com and check out the Rebel School tab. Gina, thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. Hang tight.
I love you too. Okay.